Tonight is our fifth session on tough love. It is scheduled to be our last session on tough love. Um, and I hope that this has been fulfilling for you. And I just want to say, while this is our last session on tough love, I believe it introduces hopefully a different perspective on a very, very old subject, which is love. I remember having a few different conversations in a few different places, a few different settings, and love has come up. And sometimes it's seen as a lesser subject, if you will, not to the depth that other subjects are. And I find that, to say the least, interesting. I find it the deepest subject of all. I find it the most difficult subject of all. I find it the most challenging subject of all. I find it the signature subject of Jesus Christ. And so for me, it's always appropriate. And I am, with no apologies, I've brought to you tough love. I think that we could have spent many, many, many more sessions, but I would rather all of those sessions be lived through your experiences. And again, I hope that these classes have been sufficient to kick off a new walk for you in your expression of that which defines Jesus Christ. So welcome to our Tuesday nighters. Welcome to the Church of Jesus Christ, and welcome to the subject tough love. Tonight's subject, by definition or by title, is loving unlovables is the toughest love. A quick review, one slide or two review of where we've been. Tough love is a recovery plan, nothing more, for those who are struggling through something specific in their life. It is often associated with those who have been taken down by something that is a result of bad decision making. The healing the healing itself is the result of reversing whatever that harmful or failed behavior is, and the focus for such healing is placed upon the individual, their own efforts, and no one else's intervention. Tough love is also, and this is the shift that we've made over the last 4 weeks. Tough love is also God's firm but gentle tactic for all mankind. And we found that it always has been. God has never permitted any other avenue of escape for anyone through anyone else, meaning it has to come through the individual efforts in order to save themselves, ultimately through God's plan of salvation, and ultimately and only, exclusively, if you will, through his son, Jesus Christ. Tough love. Mirrored as the tactic, different in the cause, and certainly the same focused effects, which is a recovery from harmful and failed behaviors of the individual. There's another theory attached, and it carries with it a singular definition predicated on a singular freestanding statement. God's demands for our love is always tough love. We've all heard the commandments, the many commandments concerning God's love. Maybe we've attempted and failed to fully understand God's love. Maybe we've all attempted and failed to fully apply God's love. God's commandments for us to love provide for no unwavering, no uncertainty, no questions. He allows for no distinction nor selectivity, if you will, in whom we love. Yet, we often choose who we love, individually and generally speaking, maybe more so generally. We love this person, but not many like him. We love that person, but not many like her. So we are selective. This can even be determined by preconceived thoughts and opinions, often justifiable, but that doesn't matter. We are the receivers of God's unconditional love, else none of us would ever receive any of his love. We depend upon that unconditional love. So he who grants that has the ability, the permission, and the power to demand that from us. Mankind receives God's unconditional love. Man receives God's unconditional love as manifested in forgiveness. Mankind then shows forgiveness to only those we might see as deserving of. Man receives God's unconditional love manifested through his mercy. And then mankind takes that and shows mercy based upon worthiness versus unworthiness. Man receives God's unconditional love as manifested through his grace. And then individually, we decide who should and shouldn't receive our own graciousness. Man receives God's unconditional love manifested in tenderness. And then mankind exhibits a similar care to those who merit such kindness. We have it a little twisted. God's demands for us to love are always tough love. And he understands that. More specifically, God commands for us to love in reference to who, what, when, where, how, and why. He gives us specifics. And it's these things that designate such directives as tough love, because God's love, as he intends, not necessarily as we interpret it to be, is what makes it such tough love. Because we have little or no reference to generous and pure love, expressing this unfamiliar love can be quite extraordinary, at the very least tough, as our subject has been. This is shown to be so in God's maybe seemingly simple demand: love God. Seemingly simple, is it? He says to love he who defines love. John captures it this way: God is love. So he's asking us to love the one who is defined by love. And we see our loving him is but a reaction to him loving us. John also captures this: we love him because he first loved us. So our love for him is conditional, contingent upon. We love him because he loved us. Man is a natural animal. We are primarily natural beings. And by nature, we do not love those who do not love us. We react to being disrespected, dishonored, despised, and detested. And with that, we respond poorly to that treatment and that behavior. Normally, naturally, we do not react with, I love this type of behavior, or more specifically, I love this person. And our rejection confirms what the word says. The natural man is an enemy to God. You see, when we disrespect or dishonor, he loves us. When we despise, he loves us. When we detest, he loves us. And asks the same of us. And when we give in to our nature, we show ourselves to be in opposition to God. Sure why? To be carnally minded, found in Romans, says this, is death. But to be spiritually minded is life and peace. So because the carnal mind is enmity against God, it is not subject to the law of God, neither indeed can it be. It works in opposition to God. The natural man is written in 1 Corinthians, by the way. The natural man receives not the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolish to him. If you've ever had an opportunity to share your testimony or something about God to someone who doesn't understand, you'll find that they find it foolish. Neither can he, that natural man, know them, these things of the Spirit of God, because they are spiritually discerned. So he who lacks spirituality cannot speak the language of love. Okay, I'm going to pause for a moment to the class and just for a moment give you a general explanation before we shift to tonight's subject so that we all understand. I purpose all my classes in providing what I hope is general explanation for man's behaviors, not purposed to create guilt, disgrace, or denial. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Kind of we're all tie for last. And so we don't have to either own or not own some of these behaviors. They just are. So I hope to supply reasoning to why you in your quiet place, in your silence, in your solitude, you might experience or feel or even submit to what is unappealing thoughts. Maybe disappointing actions or emotions that feel so foreign. But in fact, they're natural. And so when we find ourselves behaving or reacting, quote unquote, normally or more, quote unquote, naturally, we think ourselves to be the worst of all people. We think ourselves to be separate from one another, and we find ourselves ashamed. That's why we read verses like, "Oh, wretched man that I am," or "of all the sinners of whom I am chief." We find ourselves to be the worst. But this isn't accurate. I want to be clear that you understand that. That's why I give you the backfill of natural behaviors, what comes by nature. We have to fight against those, and when we give into them, we're giving into our natures. You are not worse than anyone else. In fact, we are each average. We are each normal. We are each natural beings in which, going into the water, coming out, we rise a spiritual being, but we continue the battle for the rest of our lives, natural versus spiritual. Now, all of this is no excuse, but simply an explanation to how we are created. And I've said it before, so we'll say it again. Man is built to fail, yet man is intended to succeed. So that if we are, and if you agree that we are built to fail, any success is not to our glory, but instead to God's glory. When we fail, that's what comes naturally. When we succeed, all honor and glory to God for placing within us his Holy Spirit. That's the intention of all my classes, so that you can feel a part of one another and not feel any kind of shame or any kind of disgrace or any kind of guilt or find yourself having to deny anything. It's who we are. Okay. John's statement that we love God because he loved us first identifies something. So given our natures, can we infer from that verse that if he didn't, we wouldn't? Can we infer that if he didn't love us first, we wouldn't love him? Is that what John's saying? Maybe. If yes, how do we rectify Jesus' commandment to love others as we shift to tonight's class? Especially when so many others don't love us first and maybe don't love us at all. So is it impossible to love others? Absolutely yes. Without God, by the way. Not with God. Without God, it is impossible. The word says it this way: with men, this is impossible, but with God, all things are possible. Yes, we can love the unlovable, but it is the toughest love. There are so many instances that God orders us to do things that seem unattainable. And that's only because they are. When we attempt to do anything without God, loving the unlovable is the toughest love. as the direct spokesman for the Father. The Father's only begotten Son demanded from all of us tough love. Jesus' first measure of tough love was for us to love God. Remember now, love He who was an intangible spirit, love He who first loved us. Should be easy. However, his second, and it wasn't, by the way, it was still tough love. Jesus' second measure of tough love was to love others. Now Jesus was commanding us to love those who may not even like us, let alone love us. Others were tangible, and worse, unlovable in so many ways. Here's how Jesus said it to us. His first difficult statement. And the top of this slide is going to be the same on the next 4 or 5 or 6 slides. And the verses are going to change at the bottom. So let's go through these. These are the difficult verses. The difficult verses demanding tough love concerning the unlovable. Love your enemies. Do good to them which hate you. I know you've heard this, but I want you to hear it without defensive behavior, without thinking anything other than just hear what he's saying for you to do. He's telling you, I have empowered you with my Spirit. You can do this. And I know it seems and feels impossible, individually and generally. Love your enemies. Do good to them which hate you. Bless them that curse you. Pray for them which despitefully use you. Him that smites you on the one cheek, offer also the other. Him that takes away your cloak, forbid him not from taking your coat also. Give to every man that asks of you. Him that takes away your goods, ask them not again. Don't ask for them to return it, is what that means. As you would that men should do to you, do also to them likewise. Be the example. If you love those which love you, what thank have you? For sinners also love those that love them. It's easy to love the person who loves us. He's asking for more. Anyone, he said, can love those who love us. Love those who don't. Love the unlovable. If you do good to them which do good to you, what thank have you? For sinners also do even the same. If you lend to them of whom you have hope to receive, what thank have you? For sinners also lend to sinners to receive as much again. He's asking us to go further. He's asking us to experience and embrace tough love. Being better than those around us, shining our light. Being in physical form the example, the ambassador, the representative of Jesus Christ. He would have done all these things. In his absence, who will show tough love? Love your enemies, do good and lend, hoping for nothing again. Your reward shall be great, and you shall be the children of the highest if you do these things that Jesus Christ did. For he is kind unto the unthankful and to the evil. He loves all his creation. And he's asking you to love all his creation. Be ye therefore merciful, as your Father also is merciful. Judge not, and you won't be judged. Condemn not, and you won't be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Give, and it shall be given to you. For with the same measure that you mete out to others, it shall be measured to you again. The love that you show will be returned. The generosity that you express will be returned. the kindness that you give to others will be given back to you. That's what he's saying. God's demands to love are all considered tough love. He commands us to love. He commands us to love our enemies. He commands us to love those who hate us. He commands us to love those who curse us. He commands us to love those who use us. He commands that we love those who smite us. He commands that we love those who steal from us. He commands that we give to those who need to borrow without asking to be returned. And he asks us to love those who take from us. He commands us not just to love those who love us. He commands us not just to love those who do good to us. He commands us to be merciful. He commands us to be forgiving. He commands us to be generous. He commands us to be without condemnation for anyone else. He commands us to be without judgment of anyone else. Surely, this is all challenging to the natural side of us. I give you that. Surely, this is all tough love. We are simply not built to love like this. That's what qualifies all of God's demands to love as tough love. We're not built to love the most unlovable. That's what qualifies his demand to love others as the toughest love. Separation and judgment and disregard and harsh outlooks on others because of attire, because of age, because of color, because of culture, because of religion, because of race, because of gender, because of region, because of beliefs, because of upbringing, because of behavior, or any other reason is natural. It's justifiable. It's explainable. It is the opposite of tough love. It's easy hate. And it's unbecoming any benefactor of God's generous love. We are those who are called, required to embrace and possess tough love. We are those who have been embraced and loved unconditionally. God understands just how difficult his demands are. God understands just how difficult his commandments are. And with that understanding, with that compassion, the Creator reminds the created one more time, love God, love all others. Loving the unlovable is the toughest love of all. Having said that, love the most unlovable.